Good evening. So I am Clémence, Managing Director at Embercombe, and I am very pleased to welcome you here tonight. If you'd like to know more about two of our most popular programs, The Journey and the Hearth, you have come to the right place. This is what we will be discussing tonight. Maybe let's spend a moment to just arrive and breathe and recenter ourselves to make sure that we are fully present for this. So I'm going to start with introducing Embercombe. So we are a 50-acre beautiful valley on the edge of Dartmoor in Devon in the UK. We rewild our land and teach comprehensive rewilding skills, and we initiate our participants into a path of personal transformation, weaving inner development and outer action. We model and share earth-based wisdom for holistic life, and we do all of this to co-create a regenerative, flourishing future for all species. Tonight, you will hear about our programs, and you will also get an opportunity in the end to ask questions that you may have if we haven't answered them yet. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Macartney. Mac is the founder of Embercombe and the creator of both the programs, The Journey and the Hearth, that we'll be discussing tonight. Mac is an international speaker, writer, and eco-peace advocate and activist. He was mentored by Indigenous people over many years and has acquired profound and original insights. Mac seeks to inspire the emergence of the leader in each of us, the leader who will take courageous action for a better world. So first of all, Mac, could you tell us a bit more why what you felt it was needed to create the Journey and the Hearth programs?
Sure, thank you. And first of all, hello and welcome to all of you who are here with us on this webinar. Sometime after I returned from North America on one of my visits there with my Native American mentors, and after Embercombe had been purchased, I was asking myself, what could we do here at this time now to offer something that was rooted in everything that I had learned through the period of time that I was with those people, the extraordinary experiences that I had, and the deepening constantly over many years, deepening love of our Mother Earth. What could we create in Embercombe that would, as it were, fill a week? That would be a powerful offering and contain the essence of some of what I've been taught while I was away. And what they taught me, or two things that they were always working with me about, was helping me understand or come into closer relationship with life, with everything that is beautiful about our world, with the emerging sense of profound gratitude that I had for the privilege of a human life, and understanding what I was invited to do while I was here in this life. And as we all know, we have found ourselves alive at the most extraordinary time in our species and indeed in our world's history, a turning point in many regards. And so while the journey is and contains profound elements around personal development and the healing and the sort of all kinds of things which have to relate to us personally, it's also a call to action. It sort of says, you know, do you know what you, well, those three questions, do you know what it is that you really deeply and profoundly love? have you some sense of the gifts that you possess, that which is unique to you, given to you by creation, that is yours to grow, develop, and then share? Are you aware of your responsibilities that you carry to yourself, to others who are close to you, but then broader out into the world, all species, all people? And then ultimately, where does this lead you? And so that's what the journey was. It was like this, wherever you are on your journey, wherever you are in your life, wherever you've arrived, whether this is the first step or the 1000th step, as it were, provides the opportunity to take stock, to listen to others, to receive an experience that goes really deep, and then to make perhaps a promise or a pledge and move to action on departure. Now, a week is a week, and it can seem sometimes an extremely long time, and sometimes it can seem an extraordinarily short time. I think whatever it is, it's actually, it's ridiculous to imagine that in 1 week, as it were, everything changes. So I've often said to people, it's an exaggeration. It's to call the journey program the journey, because it isn't. It's a pit stop on the journey. It's sort of, pulling into a little lay-by and diving into the forest and spending a little bit of time with a group of others who are also on their journeys, taking stock, breathing, feeling deeply, sensing where you are, attending to wounds or hurts or bruises, recognizing strengths, gifts, laughing, crying, whatever it happens to be. And probably then filled with this sense of profound wonder at what we have in this life, committing ourselves in some way either to action or redirection of that action or so on. Now, the Hearth offers something different. The Hearth says, if any of us are to sustain in our lives, once we leave, as it were, the gates of somewhere like Embercombe or our own homes or wherever it is that we're nurtured and held, if we are to sustain in the world that human beings have created now, which in many ways is extremely harsh, is a lot of sort of toxicity in the whole system and the atmosphere, and if we're not to be defeated almost in the first text, email, or phone call that slams its way into our lives as we make our journey home. If we're not to do that, then we need to be rooted into something that is utterly trustworthy, completely reliable, and that is strong enough and gentle enough, as it were, to hold us on that onward journey. And so the Hearth takes one little piece of the journey program and it deepens it into an entire experience over a week. And that experience is about deep connection with our Mother Earth. It's about, you're not required, and nobody is required to believe something. It is simply to experience something and to allow that experience to penetrate deeply, sufficiently deeply, that even though, whether it's the journey of the Hearth, it forever needs to be nourished and continuously fed, but powerful enough, strong enough for us not to forget it. So I would like to liken it to a kiss, really. Receiving a kiss that just shocks, transforms, and which we will never forget. And therefore the desire to be within that embrace, not just for the moment of a kiss, but forever. And the Hearth, I feel, attempts, and indeed I believe does, offer that possibility. So the first one is, where am I on my journey? How do I show up in the world? How can I deepen my pledge both to myself and my own growth and coming to potential? And how can I turn what is in my heart into outward action in the world? And then the Hearth says, and how can you sustain over the long term once you've made that choice? And I'm not, lastly, just to say, you know, I don't think I or any of us who guide and hold both of these programs, we know that a week is a tiny amount of time, but it is sufficient if our longing is strong enough to help us place our hand on this handrail, if you like, that will guide us. And though there'll be many times when we need to seek, when we need to rest, when we need nourishment, when we need whatever good company. Both experiences are profound, both of them are deep. And with, as I say, the desire, the longing within us, both of them are powerful enough to make a long, deep and lasting impact.
Thank you, Mark. And so people may be wondering, okay, which one is for me, or maybe we can answer the question, who is it for each program? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, even at the moment on the website, the text, I think, suggests, or one would be forgiven for it inferring that with the journey, it feels like for someone at the beginning of their journey. Now that text will be changing very soon, because as we read it through and reflect and periodically revisit and change, it was very clear to me and some others that it's not currently reflecting the truth of who the journey is for. And I would say the truth of who the journey is for is one of the key strengths of the program, because it's not for one demographic. It's not for a sort of a person, let's say at the very beginning, placing their first footfall on the pathway towards more self-awareness, consciousness and action. One of the most wonderful things is that you get people who are both very young, in early adulthood, so 19, 20, and you get people in their middle, late 70s, and everybody in between. You get people from all walks of life, all genders, all different sort of points of view, social backgrounds. You get some who have perhaps never worked at all, and some who have worked far too hard for far too long. You get the whole lot in there. You get people who've been adherent to some particular religious or spiritual path for a long time, and you get people who've never even thought about it, hardly. You get people who are bored with their lives, and you get people whose lives are just too full. You get people who have endless questions, and you have people who are struggling to find the first. You have people who are broken and hurt, and you have people for whom life has treated exceptionally kindly. All of them hold something in common. And I would say that there is hardly a single human being alive that I'm aware of that is not still on a pathway seeking wholeness. And I have never met, and I'm certainly not someone who has achieved wholeness. So we could say that everybody is there because they're trying to find more of themselves, to build this full coherent self, to rebalance themselves in some way or other. And the other thing is, they all know that we are in this critical period of history, where, as I've said many times before, in my view, the greatest challenge we face at this time is not actually climate change or any of these other huge, big issues. It's the passivity of hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of good people who in some way or other have withheld or are withholding the full weight of their gifts. To some degree remain bystanders, observers, sympathizers, empathizers, making some efforts to contribute, but very few to the full extent of the passion that resides dormant or awake in their hearts. And this really does matter. So I don't think that when you commit to the journey and when you bring yourself to these times that you're sort of dooming yourself to a rather depressing, do-gooding life, as it were. You are sentencing yourself to a life full of joy and happiness and a wonderful, abundant sense of I really am alive, fully alive, and I'm using my time well, which is one of my favorite phrases from Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf says to Frodo, all you have to decide is how you will use the time that you've been given. All you have to do is to decide how you will use the time that you've been given. And the sum of those choices over this next decade or so, it would seem to me, will actually decide the future that our children and the children of all species and their children inherit.
Yeah, it is definitely time for anyone who feels the longing for it to come, because the journey and the Hearth will really help you to step into where you can come and do next. So yes, I having done the journey myself, I'll speak a bit to that later, but yeah, this is really how I've felt as well.
And in a way, Clemence, you know, this is the time.
Yeah.
And it's also been the time for the last half century or more.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes it so acute, but not in a desperate kind of way, but is that it will not be for lack of knowing what's happening if we find ourselves hurtling into an extremely bad future. It will be because knowing what we know, we chose not to fully participate in sufficient numbers. And we should, and there are so many people, as you asked me also earlier, like, for whom is it for? Well, the multitude of people that I have met, very few have a sense of their real, the fullness of the agency they could have in the world. Yet, speaking as someone now whose main primary work is in speaking and writing, those two things were at the very top of the most terrifying of my list, and also the two things that I thought I was the least capable of. So it can be quite confusing. And where it begins is what's in your heart and how much you love. And when that's accessed, all kinds of impossible things become possible.
Yeah, I want to share this, since you're saying this, I want to share this with everyone, that when I arrived to do the journey, the first day I was with a friend, and we were kind of joking and saying like, ha ha ha, we're gonna listen to our hearts, and then actually by the end of it, I did hear my heart for the first time at Embercombe, and it was so special. And that is definitely what has set me on my path. And so I really hope that that everyone can benefit from this experience that you're holding so beautifully, Mac. Yeah.
Me and the team. But
yes, absolutely. So there's a question that comes a lot, and it's about, so we know the programs are 6 days, and we've described a bit what people can get out of it. But one thing that we don't do is that we don't share the details of what's in the journey and the Hearth. Could you tell us why, Mac?
Yes, whether it'll be sufficient, I guess each individual will have to decide.
Yeah.
But we have become used to being provided with some kind of itinerary and full explanation of what we're purchasing. And in knowledge of that, we decide whether or not it's worth us spending our money and spending our time. But my Indigenous mentors never laid out in front of me what we were going to do. They said, if you are to build, well, they began somewhere else. They said, you have an idea of what tomorrow holds for you. You have an idea about what this year might hold for you. In truth, you have no idea. You have no idea. When I went to the hospital in Bristol a few years ago, having finally now learnt that I did not have a brain tumor, that I was perfectly well, and that I was now free to go on living my life, jumped in the car with Wandia, my wife. She's driving. We head down the M5. So relieved, having had this sentence removed from my shoulders, our family. And a car hit us from behind, traveling about 120 miles an hour. And suddenly we're going down the center lane of the M5 motorway, with cars and lorries just going, and we're flung into each other's arms, waiting for the first, second, third impacts as the inevitable pileup of cars. Next moment, we smash into the central barrier, and later that day, we catch a train home. We have no idea, and that's just one. We have no idea. A friend of ours who called us yesterday to say that she's contracted cancer. We have no idea whether redundancies on there. We have no idea whether we're going to meet the person we're going to spend the rest of our lives. These are all big ticket things, but we have no idea whether a small exchange in a shop that we go to or online is going to have big impact in our lives. It's like life unfurls itself. And so we make plans to try and create the fantasy of imagining that we have some degree of control and we know what's going on. The truth is, it's just not really like that. So they were saying far better to dig deep and find the trust to step into your life and build resilience. Learn that you have the capacity to meet whatever comes to you. And as that goes on over time, you begin to understand that you are have far more agency, far more sort of ability to meet the ups and downs and the weather of life. So Mac, don't ask us what we're going to do tomorrow. My Native American mentor said to me, don't ask us what's going to happen in this situation or that. We have a little bit of an idea, but so much will depend upon how you respond. So we've done the same with the journey. But it's not just like that. I say to the people that come on those programs together with my colleagues, we say, our promise to you is that we will meet you with respect for who you are. We will not seek to indoctrinate you with some new belief system. There is nothing to join. We will meet you with our sincere desire that this be a meaningful, kind, and loving experience for you. It is possible that you might weep, and it's equally possible you may laugh. But in no situation will we, as it were, adopt a position where we are, as it were, exerting control over you. We will simply open up spaces, ensure that they are safe, and invite you to step into them. And, you know, even as I say this at the beginning of every program, and I look at the people and I see they want to believe me, but they're not quite sure. And I understand that. But I say, listen, you just tell me at the end of the week, was it true? Was it real? And nobody so far has said that it wasn't. So yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
I just need to add, I've just remembered,
Yeah.
the hearth actually is different.
Right.
We are happy to share the contents of the hearth because it's a different kind of program. And what I could say there is, it sounds banal, it sounds like, you know, very simple, but we spend a lot of time in council. We spend a lot of time in breath work together. The people spend time solo in the woods, in the forest, and on our land, listening to our Mother Earth. We do something like an individual, what we call prayer lodge, which is a little similar to a sweat lodge, but it's an individual lodge and an individual experience. There is no mystery in what is in the hearth, but somehow, which is like the journey, because the other reason, if I describe what was in the journey, I think people would say, well, what's so great about that? And I'd say, I have no idea. Like somehow or other, when we do this thing, when we open that space, when we go down to the stone circle, before people even come, those of us who are running it together with the back row, together with the Embercombe staff, we go down to the stone circle. We enter the circle without speaking. We go to the fire pit at the center that is our embodiment of the children's fire, which some will know about and some won't. There we light a little fire and we pledge that we will do all that we can to bring the best of ourselves in service to the people who are coming. And when everybody leaves 6 days later and they've all gone, we go back down to the stone circle. We each take a handful of the ash of that fire that we lit 6 days before. We turn outwards and we cast it to the wind as a blessing on all those people who are traveling back into their lives, that they should be safe, they should be held, and that their lives should unfurl well. So that is the spirit with which we bring it, both of them. And indeed, I would say all the work that we offer in this valley.
Thank you. So I think it's a good time for me to share with you a few videos actually of our participants. So I'm just going to explain a bit of the context of these videos. So I asked some questions to participants as they finished the journey on their last day back in October last year. I'm not showing you everything in the video, because we were at the highest point of Embercombe, beautiful view, but also quite a lot of wind. So you wouldn't be able to hear everything, but I will share with you the bits that you can hear. And so this is about the journey. So bear with me as I share my screen. Here we go. There's 3 of them. So the first one is Darren, and I asked him, is there anything you would like to say to someone who is thinking of doing the journey?
Well, the obvious one, just do it. But I can imagine some of the questions and the things that you might be thinking about it, or looking for. The thing I say is, don't worry about the detail. Just trust your instinct. If this feels or sounds like there's something in there for you, trust that. Don't worry about the details, and trust that you have everything you need to complete it and to get what you want.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to thank everybody at Embercombe and the facilitators and the back row and everyone who is and wants to make it possible. Because it changes lives.
Thank you.
Right. And then, so this is Simi, and the question was, what has being here meant for your life moving forward?
Being here has just been the reminder I really needed to keep coming to places like this, to keep doing the work, because in today's life is just so busy and so hectic. You can have these deep wants to help, but life distracts you and gets in the way. And so this was just a real tangible commitment to life and to love. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add? Just a massive thank you. If anyone's thinking of doing it, don't think twice. Just get yourself here. Thanks.
Starting to get a picture here. So I've got a third one as well. So that's Annabelle. And again, I was asking Annabelle, what has been here meant for you or life moving forward? And that's her answer. Right. That's gone.
Okay.
Whoops.
For my life moving forward, being here has shown me that I've lost my nature connection, and that I can't say one of the rituals journey has allowed me to reconnect with nature, reconnect with tribe, reconnect with myself.
Thank you. And last question is, what would you say to someone who is thinking of perhaps doing the journey but is not sure?
I'd say that we are the change that we are calling for, and that change comes from within. And that I've done a lot of journey work. I've traveled all over the world, and this is the most profound journey I have ever done in my life. And I would welcome and encourage anyone to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Is there anything else you want to add?
If you want to feel it up and life.
Thank you.
Right. Well, every time I'm crying when I hear this one. Right. So now we're going to go into the practical details. I hope that was helpful to see some feedback from the participants just as they were about to leave Embercombe. So the Hearth is running twice this year, once in April and once in July. And the journey 5 more times this year. So there's one in March and it's almost full. There's one in April, one in September, one in October, and one in December. I just want to talk about very quickly about pricing, just for everyone to be clear on that. So there's a regular price that most of you will pay. And we also have a supporter price for people who can afford to pay a bit more. And that allows us to bring in some people who can't pay as much to benefit from a bursary on the program. So if you'd like to apply for bursary, you're very welcome to contact us at support@embercombe.org. And then we also have a payment plan, which means that you can spread the payments on however many months you would like. All you need to do is to have paid the full amount 5 days before the start of the program. So the way it works is that you pay the 25% deposit and then you can pay the rest in installments. Before we go into questions, is there anything else you wanted to add, Mac, or we're going into questions now?
The only one thing I'd add is, the journey has been running for, I don't know how many years, quite a lot of years. What would it be? 10, 12, I don't know, something like that. And it's, and I still marvel and wonder at the fact that it's as fresh now as it ever was. And it's the reason for its existence is stronger than it ever was. So it's a joy for me and for all of us on the Journey in Hearth teams. And I would say for you, Clemence, and all the people that have supportive roles in the Embercombe team, that we should be privileged to be able to offer this. And I can't imagine more fulfilling work.